everybody, and welcome to episode 21 of Talkin' Tunes with Dr. Tony. So I've been with other people for the past couple of videos, so this one's just going to be a solo effort by yours truly, alone. So today we're going to be getting back to another trifecta, and the trifecta group for this episode is from The Who. Arguably my favorite band of all time, given any particular day, competing with the Peter Gabriel era Genesis, or yes, up until 90125 album, or Frank Zappa. So if you're a regular viewer, you may remember that my rule for the trifecta is that the albums preceding and following the trifecta must be clearly not as good as the three albums making up the trifecta. This was the case with Yes, with the Yes album, Fragile and Close to the Edge, and David Bowie with Hunky Dory, Ziggy Stardust, and Aladdin Sane, but it's not the case with The Who. And since I make up the rules for my channel, and seeing that The Who is my favorite all-time band, I get to break the rules. So the albums making up the trifecta are Tommy, Who's Next, and Quadrophenia. The reason the rules are broken is because The Who Sell Out from 1967 and preceding Tommy is a really good album, reaching number 48 in the US Billboard 48 in the US Billboard, and then 13 in the UK, selling more than 60,000 copies, which was a Silver Records designation. And then we have Live at Leeds from 1970, released between Tommy and Who's Next. It's not a studio album, of course, but in my opinion, it's the greatest live album ever, right up there with the Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore East, which brings to mind that perhaps I'll do a future show on my favorite live albums and talk about those. Furthermore, Live at Leeds was a double platinum album in the US, selling more than 2 million copies, and it reached number 4 on the Billboard charts. Then we have Who by Numbers, following Quadrophenia, released in 1975. This was a platinum album as well, selling more than 1 million copies and reaching number 8 in the US and number 7 in the UK. And then later, Who Are You reached number 2 in the US and was double platinum. So these albums kind of messed things up with my trifecta, but still, Tommy, Who's Next, and Quadrophenia are so wonderful that I need to promote them to an exalted position. I think if any band would have just released one of these albums, it would have been a lifetime achievement. But to release these 3 studio albums in succession is mind-boggling, especially when you consider that The Who only released 12 studio albums over a 54-year period from 1965 to 2019. So their most productive years were during the late 1960s and also the 70s. They took a 25-year break from the album It's Hard in 1982 to Endless Wire in 2006. So this is enough of a warm-up. Let's get into the 3 albums. So I first encountered The Who at the La Mirada swap meet when I was 15 years old. I bought a bootlegged 8-track version of Tommy, and I didn't know if the band was called Tommy or the record was called Tommy. And to be sure, many people referred to this recording as Tommy the Who. This is because The Who were still relatively unknown in the US. Their singles did pretty well in Cashbox. For example, Happy Jack reached number 13 in 1966. I Can See for Miles reached number 8 in 1967. And Magic Bus reached number 10 in 1968. But the albums associated with these singles, Happy Jack and Magic Bus, The Who on tour, did not sell very well. So The Who still, like I said, they were not that well known. So it's not a surprise that that album was called by a lot of people Tommy the Who. So Tommy was released on May 23rd, 1969, almost 54 years ago, and it reached double platinum in the US, selling more than 2 million copies, and reached gold status in the UK, France, Italy, and New Zealand. It reached number 4 in the US and number 2 in the UK. Of the 3 albums reviewed today, it has the least well done studio production and engineering. At the time, The Who were struggling financially. If you compare Tommy to its contemporaries from 1969, such as Abbey Road, Led Zeppelin II, Let It Bleed, and Hot Rats, it pales by comparison in terms of its sound quality. And then if you compare I'm Free and We're Not Gonna Take It to the live versions, they seem pretty limp. Still, there can be no denying when it comes to the songwriting on this album and its overall concept, and it served as Roger Daltrey's breakout album as he was forever identified as Tommy and assumed a much more forceful stage presence. But his vocals in general are underwhelming on this album. And Townsend may sing as much as 1/3 of the album, and Daltrey's voice is nothing like the powerhouse you hear on Who's Next and Quadrophenia. So Tommy has been performed live many times over the years by The Who and other production companies. As a rock opera, it was preceded by a quick one while he's away, checking in at 9 minutes and 10 seconds from 1966 on the album, A Quick One. Pete Townsend brought half-finished demos to Tommy that he wrote, while John Entwistle wrote 2 songs, Cousin Kevin and Fiddle About. Critics were initially divided because the album was so unusual, but over time it has been both a critical and commercial success. The instrumental interludes, Sparks and Underture, set the stage and create a foundation for extended jams during their concerts. And Pinball Wizard is fantastic, although I can't stand Elton John's version. I'd be remiss not to talk about the Tommy movie. It's well made, but Anne Margaret is definitely miscast. Tina Turner as the Acid Queen is fantastic, and Daltrey's performance of I'm Free in the swimming pool is a highlight. It would have been interesting if The Who re-recorded Tommy after Quadrophenia, seeing that they had more money and there was better technology. I did get to see the original Who play much of Tommy in 1976 at Anaheim Stadium, complete with a laser light show. Okay, next up is Who's Next, which is one of my all-time top 10 albums. I never tire of this album as I think it's just perfect. Glenn Johns was brought in and his focus was getting the best sound possible, and he achieved that to a very high extent. Glenn's pedigree was impressive because prior to 1971, when Who's Next was released on August the 14th, he had engineered more than 60 albums between 1964 and the release of Who's Next, including all the Rolling Stones recordings, and he also did Led Zeppelin 1, Abbey Road, and Sticky Fingers. So if you know those 3 albums, they have great sound, and so does Who's Next. So in a way, Glenn Johns was not that dissimilar from George Martin as the 5th member of The Who. Who's Next was originally intended as another rock opera called Lighthouse, but was abandoned. This was a triple platinum album in the US, selling more than 3 million records, and platinum in the UK, reaching number 1. Everyone knows Baba O'Reilly or Out Here in the Fields, Behind Blue Eyes, and Won't Get Fooled Again. But playing the album all the way through at maximum volume gives the listener the maximum satisfaction. There's brilliant use of synthesizer on the album, and also nice singing by Townsend on The Song Is Over and Going Mobile. And there's terrific drumming by Keith Moon throughout. So this is one album that speaks for itself. I saw The Who for the first time on my 18th birthday at the Long Beach Arena in December 1971. They were so impressive with their first three numbers, I Can't Explain, Substitute, and Summertime Blues, and then they launched into 5 songs from Who's Next? My Wife, Baba O'Reilly, Bargain, Behind Blue Eyes, and then Won't Get Fooled Again. And then later in the concert, they played a 5-song medley from Tommy. The third album in the trifecta is Quadrophenia. It's another concept album. Not as commercially or critically successful as Tommy or Who's Next, but in my opinion, just as good. Quadrophenia is more like the live Who. It's a very, very heavy album. The music is just terrific. And it was recorded in the same studio, Olympic Studios, as Who's Next. Glenn Johns was the co-engineer and the co-mixer, and it was released on October 26, 1973. I saw them twice, about 1 month after it's released, on November 22nd and the 23rd, 1973, at the Forum in Inglewood. Leonard Skinner opened for The Who, and I was in the 6th row for the first concert and in the loge for the second. Like 1971, The Who opened with I Can't Explain. They skipped Substitute and then played Summertime Blues and then played the whole Quadrophenia album except Cut My Hair, The Dirty Jobs, Is It In My Head, and I've Had Enough. There was really great integration of recorded sound effects like the rain, ocean, and synthesizer, but at times Townsend went running off stage, clearly upset that something was amiss. So I love this album. I bought the import CD during a trip to London. John Entwistle shines with his bass playing and the horns arrangements. For me, the standouts are The Real Me, Seein' Sand, and I'm One, with Townsend on lead vocal. And the lyrics go something like, I got a Gibson without a case, but I still can't get that even tan on my face. So we haven't talked much about the lyrics from these albums, but they're terrific. Interestingly, there's no lead vocals by John Entwistle. This was a platinum selling album, selling 1 million copies, and then it was also gold in the UK, and it reached number 2 in both the US and the UK. Well, that's it for today. I'm happy I had a chance to talk to you about my favorite band, The Who, is at least my favorite band today. Tomorrow could be somebody different. But I would like you to subscribe to the channel. If you liked it, post a like, and also give me a comment. And I want you to know that I will be moving the show to every other week, starting the next episode, because summer is upon us, and I have quite a few plans for summer. But the next episode, 22, is going to be a review of the Moody Blues Classic 7 album. So I hope you'll tune in, and I will talk to you later. Have a great day. Bye-bye.